And Andy Fulton, Chairman of the Conservation Commission, will call us to order. We have 4 members present this evening of a 6-member board, so that gives us a quorum. We are good to go. To my right, Bill, Sherry, and to my left, Michael. We do have a couple folks in the audience, and in order of how I've been informed of the interest, I will first have John and Cora Champy talk with us about their proposal and their item they'd like to bring to the commission, and then Mark Phillips will join us to discuss another proposal that's well underway and worthy of consideration here tonight. So, John, if you wouldn't mind, up to the podium and introduce yourself, and I will let everyone know that John is let's see, Commissioner Emeritus in good standing. So, John served on the Conservation Commission here for well over a decade and has contributed much to our home, that place we call Weare, and no longer a town resident. And take it away, John.
It's been a while. 2008, I think, was the last time.
Has it been that long?
I believe so, yeah. When, 2008? Yeah. I don't know where the time goes.
Terrific.
My name is John Champy, and I'm attempting to sell my property of 14 acres, and I would like to place it under land conservation, as I believe the land has considerable conservation qualities. The land already has a conservation easement on it by the Wildlife Land Trust, but they do not own it. We have offered them to purchase it, but they are currently under a reconstruction of their organization. I have owned the property since 1976, but no longer live there, hence my attempt is to sell it. It is a difficult decision for me, as we have many fond memories of living there. I lived there for 33 years. So, here is a summary of some of the natural conservation values. Wildlife, there's an abundance of varied wildlife on the property that I have spotted in the area. A colony of bats. I installed a bat house on the north end of the house. Black bear, beaver in Dustin Pond. Dustin Pond is not on the property, but it's nearby. Bobcat, chipmunk, cottontail, coyote, deer, fisher cat, red fox, snowshoe hare, mole, mink, moose, deer mice, muskrat in Dustin Pond, otter in Dustin Brook, porcupine, raccoon, shrews, skunks, including an albino skunk that was spotted there. That was quite a sight. A gray, red, and flying squirrel, voles, woodchucks, weasels. And some of the birds that have been spotted there: hawk, turkey, spruce grouse, owls, including the saw-wheat owl, snowy barred owl, and the great horned owls, hummingbirds, woodpeckers, phoebes, purple martins, blue jay, ravens and crows, chickadees, titmice, nuthatch, wren, catbird, robin, veery. I think I said Veery. Is that I say right? Veery?
Sounds right, yeah.
Yes. It's in a bush. And you
Yeah.
can hear it in the bush. Cedar waxwing, eastern meadowlark, house sparrow, and cowbird. Some of the trees on the property: white pine, spruce, hemlock, poplar, aspen, 4 kinds of birches: American beech, red oak, witch hazel, white ash, chokecherry, sumac, red, sugar, and striped maple, and box elder. And there was some history on the property, as evidenced by the old moss-covered stone walls and shards of glass and pottery found on the property. And also, I have found this underneath my downspout on my house. This is a hand pounded nail. You can see it's squaredness on it, and you can see the curvature. Is my guess this came off a horseshoe quite a while ago. So, and also this property is near Chipmunk Falls, which is fed by Dustin Brook, and I believe it to be the highest falls in Weare. So that's a brief summary of the land.
We'll help you out. I'm Cora Champy, and I have a copy of that Wildlife Land Trust for you. I also have a copy of our latest tax assessment, which is $63,867. Would you like those?
Thank you, Cora.
You're welcome. And I put Jim Reed's phone number at the top. He will answer any questions concerning this conservation easement.
Okay.
And Cora, what's Jim's position?
Jim is, he was the person that, was with us when we put that under conservation.
Okay.
In Washington DC, it's the National Wildlife Land Trust.
I guess I'm done.
Is there a building on it?
Yes. There's a house.
Oh, buildings, yeah.
Sheds, and, let's see, two sheds and a workshop. There is no electricity, running water is a pump. It is a good well pump, yeah.
What about the roof on the house, on the building?
Metal.
Metal.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
metal, so
Yeah.
they're all tight then.
The
It's a
house
good-
isn't gonna go anywhere. It was built with old barn beams and it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mice love it right now.
I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
What do you guys envision the future of the property being? Do you think it'd be a spot that is suitable to occupation and, having somebody use the structure? Do you think it's a structure that will last and has value to the town or the Conservation Commission in some fashion? Or is it more of something that will gradually be likely reclaimed by the woods and become a historical site in and of its own?
The house itself is in pretty good shape because it's built out of an old barn beams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know Jam Palm, but he's the primary builder of it. He took an old barn down, I don't know what they are, 6x6s, and a lot of those beams are hand hewed. You can still see the U marks on them. So the house itself is pretty good shape. I think the other buildings are in pretty good shape too, except for the outhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's kind of fallen down. Yeah.
exactly. You already have the property at Chipmunk Falls. That's 7 acres. I believe that.
Oh, Loretta's.
Yep, I believe
Yes.
the town owns below us
Yeah,
Mhm.
as well, so it could be a continuous corridor
Yep.
of,
Yeah.
up towards Dustin.
yeah,
The creek.
yeah, it's a budding, yeah.
Yeah. That easement that we have does not allow hunting or trapping.
Right.
That's on there now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I look at a porcupine in the tree today out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's plenty of wildlife out there.
Mm-hmm.
Biggest bear I've ever seen in my life was up there. I mean, it was huge. I wanted to wake her up. It was a full moon. I can see the bear, but I couldn't speak because I was so overwhelmed. I'd never seen the black bear that big.
Yeah. I once had a full moon encounter with a moose about that far away, and yes, your tongue goes away. It's the funniest. You could still laugh, and that's about it.
Yeah, no,
It's
but
a very-
I couldn't talk. I don't know why. I never. It only happened that one time.
Yeah.
So do you have any wishes for the property from the Conservation Commission?
Yes, we are offering it for sale to the Conservation Commission.
In terms of use, would you want,
We don't want any use of it.
in terms of hunting, trapping, that
don't
continues,
want-
anything,
Oh, no hunting, no
There will be
trapping.
hunting.
No.
anything else like that?
Yeah, just protecting the wildlife and keeping it an open space.
Yeah. Charlie McKenzie owns next to us on the north side and, all the way to the road, Chipmunk Falls, where the parking lot is, and, does not want any subdividing or anything either, which is our wish as well.
Is his property in conservation too, part of it?
That I don't know,
Okay.
I don't know that.
Well, I think in large part, the land speaks for itself. It can tell its own tale. But something, as a commission, it's well to remember is the other tales that are told by people.
Yeah,
Maybe you guys are here now. You spent some time and effort to come back down below the notches, and maybe having the property from 76, John or Cora, both, you could tell us about the neighborhood and how it grew and how it's matured and where you sense it's going now, because there's a piece of history there that doesn't you can't pull it out of the rocks, you can't pull it out of the leaves, but you guys know things about it, or it's a piece of Weare's history, and maybe you could take a few minutes to share how the community, the nature of the community, how it grew, and how it's sort of reverting in some ways back to
I think it is reverting, because when I first moved there were 26 people living there.
And
Now
it's,
it's probably, what,
hippie commune kind of thing up there, Everyone was groovy, I guess.
yeah, the hippie days. Yeah. But just probably 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 8 people live there now.
Robinson's,
Robinson's below you. And
yeah,
your
by the
property,
road, and
yeah.
then Charlie McKenzie, Lori Palm,
Mm.
and then Ralph Jimenez owns out there, but he does not live there. He lives-
Ralph's place was up a little bit higher.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
On the cliff, yeah.
And it was an area where folks truly lived in the woods,
Sure.
not
Yeah.
trying to tame them or to push them back, but to kind of
Blend in.
blend in
Yeah.
Yeah.
and to enjoy
Live off the
Yeah.
land.
enjoy a more natural, off the
Yep.
grid setting.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That was the whole purpose of it, I still have my yoke. When I used to get water at Dustin Brook, as a matter of fact, I saw it today when I was up there. I said, "Oh, there's my old yoke."
There you
I
go,
used
a
to have
couple
2
buckets,
5-gallon
yeah.
2 5-gallon buckets on each side, and that's where I got water. Before we got the well put in.
And that well is what sort of well?
It's an artesian well, but it's hand pump.
It works, it's very minerally water, but
Mm.
if you want red hair, that's good.
Yeah.
I'll pass.
Yeah.
Has anybody new moved into that area in the last 10, 15 years?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I think the newest one would have been my sister Loretta, and who recently bought her property.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She was probably the last
Octagon
one.
house there.
Yeah.
We're 7 acres.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right
She-
on the falls. She
yeah.
would have been the newest person up there.
Yeah.
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 So well, we had a private conversation on this one, John, but let's address it here in the public meeting. Sometimes when properties folks who purchase a property find out it had a legacy of a different sort. And, there's a remnant of some activity there that leaves chemicals or petroleum products or things that, the new owner ends up having to take care of at
Yeah.
sometimes great expense.
Yeah.
It's a different sort of place. You were off the grid.
Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't an auto shop where, you had to figure out what to do with the crankcase oil and, but are you aware of any sort of legacy of dumping of material up in that area or anything like that?
No, none. No.
There was a logging camp up in the early 50s up in there somewhere. On the other side, came in from the Henniker Road, because I used to ride across that old logging road. I used to ride in from 114 N all the time. I used to do a loop and come out on Craney Hill Road and down around. So,
We've done that as well, that, there are some houses up there.
Yeah.
Couple houses.
yeah.
I don't know anything about them. There hadn't
No.
there. No.
No. As far as I know, we're the only ones who lived on that land for any length of time. There could have been somebody going way back. You know,
Yeah.
like I say, that's where I found
We
this,
never found it.
these old, you know, pieces of shards of pottery and
Yeah.
old nails and stuff like that. But no foundations.
Well, they didn't have, a lot of them didn't have foundations. All they had were, you'd find rocks every 10,
Right.
12 feet along, whatever they did the spacing. I mean, I've gone out in the woods and seen these rectangles with the rocks. It was,
Yeah, yeah.
That was it.
one case there was a barn there, and on the other, just on the other side of this little, there wasn't much of a road, it was more like just a walkway had grown in, but there was a, like a root cellar.
Yeah.
With a house set on one, no, yeah. But I've seen it quite a few different times, because I used to do a lot of stuff out through
The history
there.
on that road is long, Chipmunk Falls Road is long. And you can tell about that being the road to the west at Craney Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I believe that was the way they would use that road to get to Hillsborough and get on Route 9, and that took them west
yeah.
when
Yeah.
the canal opened up. What canal was that? The Erie Canal. When that opened up, yeah, the people just
114.
they wanted to get out of there because they really couldn't farm it because it was so rocky. And all they could do is basically raise sheep. That's why you got all the wool factories in Manchester.
Well, you
That's
had
right.
one right in Hillsborough, Woods Welland, for years.
Yeah, yeah,
And they did the hosiery across the road from that, so.
yeah,
There's a long history in the whole
yeah.
area.
'Cause it's
So
just
that was a travel way before 114? Is that what you're?
yeah. As far as I understand, it, 114 was boggy, and they couldn't go the way, so they had to go around up over Craney Hill,
All right, they
and
came
that's how
in.
they got to Henniker.
Yeah,
You know, and there's still evidence because there's some horse barns and some remnants of some old stalls along that road.
There was a big inn up there.
Yeah.
Right at the corner of Chipmunk Falls and,
Really?
Yeah, and the cellar hole is still there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting up there.
Yeah.
Sure.
I like hiking around there and coming across all these cellar holes and
Yeah.
dug wells. You
Yeah.
know.
This is
Oh,
very-
yeah,
Yeah.
be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about first time I met you, John? Up on the wetland, for a generic term, seems a little bit boggish. Up above the property,
Yeah.
drainage wise, you were working on you had some sort of trap in the brook there where you're trying to get a handle or get a sense on what was it newts or
The
was it
species, there were spotted salamanders were in
the
there.
salamander survey
Yeah,
or
oh
something?
yeah, there were used to be a ton of them.
And just so folks know, I live below Chipmunk Falls on Hemlock Drive, which comes off next to or sort of corner across from the high school. So I sometimes hear the football games at the high school. I always hear when water's high, the water at Chipmunk Falls.
No.
And I'd explored up the falls from my property when I moved to town in '99 and encountered John up above his house. So I had walked a woods trail there
Yeah,
and ran into John, and you were doing some salamander work.
right, the spotted salamanders, yeah, there used to be tons of them.
Yeah. I'm sure
And
there's a lot.
those kids they were
They were
big.
big.
Well, I was looking for a place to go fishing. You're like, no fishing here. That's why the salamanders are here, right? Wasn't that the deal? You
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's quite a while ago.
And
Yeah.
otter
Yeah,
and beaver.
Yeah,
up
they-
there, too.
I've seen otter in there, so they're gonna wipe the fish out
Oh, they're
right
gonna take
there.
the fish out in a short time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But they were fun to watch, the otters.
Hmm.
They
Oh,
slide
yeah.
down the embankment and
Yeah.
duck underwater, and
Right.
they were fun to watch.
It seems that the land has good conservation attributes. You took a major step.
Yeah.
When was it put under easement with the trust?
99,
Was it 99?
I believe so. Was it?
Do you have?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Actually, yeah, that should.
Should say it in
I'm
here.
saying that, I'm not sure.
Whenever they signed it, yeah.
Yep, 99.
99.
Good memory, Cora. 23rd March,
Okay, he's
99.
got it.
99.
And that runs with the land in perpetuity.
Yes.
So in that sense, there's not a a deal of pressure on the property to turn it into something it's not.
No.
So in a ranking fashion, that would say, well, if the Conservation Commission is interested in this property for the town, and we have limited funds, we have other things going on, maybe it's in a sense not at the greatest risk of losing those natural attributes that make it so interesting, which is one thing to consider, but not the only thing. It is, certainly having abutting properties that are include rare natural features like Chipmunk Falls, promote, the value of that for conservation. Larger land blocks, when you start assembling pieces, that's something we've spoken about for that area back when we spoke with your sister Loretta, and agreed that it was a sensible purchase back when we spoke about the land down below, the hillside there, the ridge, when we picked that up. So it definitely has some merits. We should, we need to balance those merits with what the costs are. So maybe you could, if you feel comfortable speaking towards what you're looking for the property, that could be helpful. And then timeline sort of issues, if there are other considerations that we should know about, that would say, for this, that, or the other reason, if you could, decide on this in the next 6 weeks, it would be great. If it needs to be 2 weeks, or whether it could be 6 months, some sort of thoughts, and share some concerns on in that regards, both that, bracketing the amount and then the time frame that might be workable.
Well, time frame, I don't think we have any specific time frame. Whenever you come to a decision, I think that would be appropriate,
And what would he wants to know what your price is.
Whatever it's valued for. Which, would you say was 62?
63,
63?
yeah.
On
There's
the,
room for talk.
mhm. And that is per town assessment,
Yes.
tax assessment.
Oh, right
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
That's our latest tax assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been, are you aware of any appraisal on the property?
No, we haven't had any notification of a new appraisal.
Mm-hmm. Or nearby properties of similar condition that have been either gone into conservation or maybe that have sold in the area.
Other than Loretta's, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was, she had 7 acres there, Monsubenos,
Right.
more or
Right.
less, and there's 14 with this one.
And when you were on the commission, John, we did also purchase a 10-acre parcel. You recall that one? A little bit. Does that abut your property? Is that closer to Henniker? You recall that one?
I think that's the property right below towards the
Yeah,
school.
yeah, that might have been down below. Probably close to your place, maybe?
That one in between us and there.
No?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
My recollection was the first purchase was a 10-acre piece that had no improvements on it, no structure, no known history of habitation.
Uh-huh.
And initially, the understanding was that it was right along the Henniker line, which would be a little bit, I believe, north of your place. But as we looked at it a little bit further, it might have been one step or one piece away from the Henniker line. But we walked it, I think Andrea Alderman was on the commission then, and Pat.
Yeah.
We had a great walk of
Myers.
that property. We looked at your property. We looked at Chipmunk Falls at that time, which would have been somewhere in the probably 2005-ish.
Oh, yeah.
That would be
So
closer to
just
that
for the benefit of the commission, there's, what John Acora proposing here would be the fourth parcel in that general vicinity, brought to our attention with motivated landowners interested in conservation. There is a 10-acre parcel, and then there is the Octagon House with a fairly small acreage, but right on the major unique feature. Then there's a 24-acre parcel down below that had folks trying to sort of homestead the land, coming up from 114,
Too
and
rocky.
it didn't work, and there was a fire, and
Oh, yeah.
there was 24 acres that were picked up then, and now John and Cora are offering a 14-acre piece. So that's really consistent with what we like to do. But I think we need to, as a commission, and not to prejudice anyone, because I want everybody to offer opinions on this, we need to look at our books, look at our resources, essentially do our due diligence to prepare a counteroffer. And that could be, yes, we agree, we really think it's, interesting at that value that you've indicated. It could be really interesting, but we might think of a different value that we're comfortable with. Or we might look at it and say, we don't have the funds right now. And I don't believe we have the information in front of us tonight to do that. But certainly in the next 2 months, I'd like to say by the end of November, we should be able to be in a really good position to say, based on our abilities and your interests, this is what we would like, to counter propose with you guys.
Yeah. I know one thing I don't want. I wouldn't want to see the land developed.
Right.
That'd be the last
Right.
thing.
It fits well in the inventory, the natural heritage inventory. Fits right into one of the larger, when you're looking at natural resources, sometimes you do look across town boundaries, and there's a large unfragmented block, well over 1,000 acres, which in the grand scheme, it still isn't very huge, but for
Yeah.
this area around here, starts offering additional value from a habitation standpoint. So there are numerous different features that really support your position, your offer. So. Any other thoughts? The great value tonight is that we can ask questions, we can have a good discussion here, and maybe elicit some thoughts and considerations that are hard to do via text or email or
Yeah,
even phone
absolutely,
call. Which I will apologize to you. This has been a good summer, but it's been a hard summer in a lot of ways. So I haven't excelled at communication with you guys. I do appreciate your perseverance and patience in that regard.
Would you mind any of us just walking around?
Oh, no, you're welcome to do that.
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
road is
Sure.
a pretty four-wheel drive, so you can drive right to the house,
Yeah.
but it's rough going.
It's pretty bumpy. Yeah. And bring your bug repellent.
Yeah.
No, that's a great.
Yeah.
The gears are not fully engaged, but that's a great comment there, Bill. That absolutely we'd want to do a site walk.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
definitely, yeah.
Absolutely.
Ideally, and I know home has moved you north. Ideally with you. So something to think about. Maybe when the leaves are down, it gives the best chance to have a great look of the area. Think about
See the shape.
whether there's a chance we could do that in October.
Sure. Yeah. And I have the boundary marked. with the wildlife land trust signs.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yep, that,
the boundaries will be easy to find.
You're more than welcome to go.
Yeah, you can go anytime if you want, you know.
Go with the balls while you're there.
Oh, yeah,
Worth the while.
yeah.
yeah.
Appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you.
I would, like any other comments, Michael, Sherry?
No, it's nice to see him though. Haven't seen him for
Yes.
quite a few years.
That's true. Well, come to Gore, I'm on the river with my fishing pole.
Excellent.
If you got an ATV, come on up. We got plenty of trails.
Yep. And John, I think if you suggest that you retired from the commission around 2008,
I believe it was 2008.
it's
yeah.
been over 10 years that we've been actively using those resources you brought to us through your employment.
Oh,
And so as
Awesome.
you're still using them?
we don't typically liquidate assets very quickly, but we've found a lot of good uses, and I really appreciate
Oh, wow.
what you did even in that way and bringing funds to conservation in the town of Weare.
Wow.
So when they do come up, and I think we just used the last of them maybe back in the spring, so well over 10 years post-retirement, I would say, wait a minute, don't forget the Champy Fund, we'll call it. We really appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for mentioning. Yeah. It's my pleasure to help out too, you know.
And thank you for hearing us this evening.
So,
thank
Commission, do we feel comfortable that at our October, no, that's the next one, at our November meeting,
Yeah.
we
Make a
we can
final
commit
decision,
to at least by that time, if not earlier, getting a well-considered response to your proposal.
And when would you think you're gonna be walking it?
Well,
October or
Probably.
at least?
or very
Might after
early
the leaves-
November.
yeah, after the leaves
when-
go off.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, we're looking for that sort of, I'm thinking anyways about that time frame between hunting season and,
Yeah.
or between rifle season and
Sure.
before then and after the leaf come down, so there's a couple weeks, maybe there towards the end of October,
October, maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
that would be a really good idea, Bill, to put feet and eyes on it.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Okay.
Very nice meeting you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Very much.
Have a good night. Mark, please join us at the podium and let's talk about what you guys have been working on.
My name is Mark Phillips from Mark Phillips Automotive. I'm the newly elected trail administrator for the Weare Winter Wanderers Snowmobile Club. And what we're presenting tonight is a potential trail reroute to take care of some issues that have arisen with the change of property at the old Buxton property. It's been purchased by the Parks. Kind of a little bit of history. Bucky was one of the charter members of the Weare Winter Wanderers. And he liked to have the trail going right through his backyard. Well, the new people don't particularly care to have the trail going through their backyard. They don't mind the trail, but they don't like it behind the house. There's also been some issues with the fields. So I went ahead and walked this trail using the Onyx Hunt app. So that's the actual my walking trail that we walked through there. We actually walked a bunch of places.
All right, hold on, Mark. Which color and symbol is the one you're talking about walking?
The blue
The blue, okay.
is
Yep.
the proposed trail. The yellow is the trail that'll be bypassed. That's the existing trail now, and that'll be bypassed.
Okay,
And the other orange are the connect the trails that are currently there.
So the orange trail that says Langtot Store Trail?
That's the existing trail
That's
that's
gonna
been there.
continue?
Yep.
Okay,
You know, the valley trail that goes up to the Fish and Game,
yeah,
and then the mountain trail that heads up to Mount Williams.
Yep.
And talking to some of the original members of this club, these were the two first trails
In town.
in town to get up to Mount Williams. That was kind of where they started.
Yeah.
So this is part of one of the oldest trails that the club has been maintaining. Now, I do understand there's a easement on the property given by Mrs. Woods. The question that I have doesn't exactly say where it is, and I don't know if there's anything, but it's always been there. And we're looking to just change it. And 80% of the trail on the conservation land is already skidder trail now. That was just logged off. As you can see, that's where it starts. That's where the start of the skidder trail is. And we were going to use the existing skidder trail. We just got to move slash and stuff and maybe push a couple of rocks aside.
Now, that's a recent, as far as you can tell, a very
this
recent
summer.
trail.
This summer.
Or skidder trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was done
What part, we are oriented, typical map here, north to the top. Is that off to the west end or the east end when you say 80% is?
Well, if you look at the blue line there and you see the green conservation gate,
Yeah,
all right, so it's to the left side, and I believe that's headed,
That's your conservation gate.
South, right?
right there, yeah.
Right.
couldn't find out where.
Just up
Yep,
in the
yep,
woods a little
just
bit,
up
yeah.
there a little bit.
Yeah.
I believe
we
this is
actually
your
headed,
property line
you know, if 114's headed north,
here.
Yep.
you're headed,
So from here to here, he's
you'd be
telling me,
headed
I haven't walked
northeast.
it yet.
Yeah.
He's telling me it's an old, very
because
old
114's over here.
Yeah.
trail.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that's right, all right, beginning of
Yep.
skidder trail
And then
means.
this is the
this-
beginning.
I was just looking
That
at it
is all
going this
recently
way.
used,
This
so
is
this,
all,
That's why I said
this is a
southeast.
section that
Yeah.
You're
that
looking this
Yes.
way.
has a trace of something but has not been recently
it
opened up.
didn't have any skidder activity.
Recent, yeah. But
recent,
maybe did
from
earlier.
Here,
Years
on.
ago.
Oh, yeah, it has,
You can walk, and it's just small saplings.
Gotta be
There's no
40.
huge trees that have to be cut or anything.
45 years ago, that was cut
Yeah.
off probably. Fred Blackman was in there, wasn't it?
And that,
Cut that off 45 years ago. Was it
the
Blackman?
next property, as you look here,
Worked on that.
to the east, you've secured
Is the parks, and we already have permission from the parks.
to rearrange that.
He worked for those.
So the plan would be is if we go ahead with this reroute, the conservation gate now will be stay closed.
Mm-hmm,
The parks gate down at the bottom there, which connects to the ball field, will also be closed. And we're gonna put some barrier there at the three-way intersection to keep people from coming down that way. So that now takes all traffic away from that area, keeps them away from the ball field.
Yeah.
There's
And
also a secondary thing for this. There's, the parks have had trouble with neighbors, a particular neighbor down there that keeps cutting through and riding through. This now blocks off all access from him, and if he's on there, he's trespassing, because there's no access to the trail from that property now.
mm-hmm.
His excuse was he was getting to the trail that's there. We go with this, that'll eliminate that problem as well. Now, just a couple
Now,
of things.
can I
that-
just, hold on a second, Mark, can I just frame this a little bit? As you mentioned at the beginning, the existing trail and as has been used up to this point, cuts across a yard.
Yes.
And the new owner of that property doesn't mind the basic tenant of snowmobile trail, just at this point is not very receptive to the idea of machines coming through the yard.
Through there, actually, it's like 40, 50 feet from the house.
Yeah.
The main trail is like 50 feet from the
So
house.
this would keep it, this would have some changes to that property, but the trail would be further from the house.
Yes,
And the new owner is okay with cutting,
Yes.
whatever, that end of the new, in lieu of basically mothballing the,
we got that
the
permission
existing
before we
piece.
came to you guys. We went ahead and got that permission first.
Right,
And now
right.
we've come to the conservation, and we have an easement, but it's just that I find that I don't fully understand, this is all new to me, so you gotta bear with me a little bit, but
Yeah.
we have an easement to cross the property. But you guys, I believe, have jurisdiction on that as it's a town forest. So we need, and in the easement, it says that the trail can be moved as long as both parties agree.
Now, is your sense in moving the trail that an easement could move with that move, if you know what I mean? Or would it be, would the Weare Winter Wanderers be looking for establishing an easement covering the new location?
It says as long as I read the easement, it says as long as both parties agree in writing, that's where the trail is.
Yep.
And as long as we maintain it, the trail is there in perpetuity.
And has that, I apologize, again, I've sort of been, I've been away for a little bit. Is the easement in question, is that something that has been shared electronically by email to the commission and otherwise, or is that something that, if it hasn't, could be
Do you have another
circulated,
copy? Do you have
circulated
another
electronic?
Copy?
I don't.
Okay, might peek at it after you.
Yeah.
Mark maybe does.
I have a copy here that's,
And this was an easement that predated our purchase of
Of the property.
the wood, what we call the wood family forest. Okay. All right, so that's something to chew on. Summer's coming to a close. What's the
Probably want to
the beneficial time frame, or what is the
we need to
what?
move as soon as we can,
You got a lot of clearing.
because we need to get this move, gates put in, and volunteer time is
Mhm.
difficult to get before the weather
Changes.
gets to the point we can't do it.
I mean, I wouldn't think that that would be an issue. That's all on that Woods property.
It is.
And she was in favor of that. I mean, years ago, she was in favor of it when she handed that property. I can't imagine it'd be an issue, but
We also, because the selectmen meeting, me not knowing, thought I went to the select board because it was town forest, town land. But we went to the board meeting on Monday and I got unanimous approval that that would be a good move. And their thoughts were the fact that, we're out of the ball field and potentials for, people tearing up the ball fields.
Andy, could I go to the podium and talk for a minute?
Absolutely, Bill. Yeah.
Bill Bolton. I'm going to talk as a citizen of Weare. And a member of the Snowmobile Club and a member of the Conservation. I have been a member of the Weare Winter Wanderers since the 80s. It is made up of about 1,000 or so Weare residents. We have about 300 plus memberships, family memberships. So if you do the math, it's and it'll go one way or the other, and it certainly, on a good year, it will go much higher than that. It very rarely droops in it. There's been an awful lot of negative things passed out through this commission recently, and I kind of hoped to address it tonight if everyone was here, but I'll wait for another time. There's never been an easement given by the town to anyone that I know of. The easements were given by the landowners, and there are currently 6 or 7 conserved properties that the Snowmobile Club was given easements. Most of them, we didn't even know we got them. The landowner just wanted to make sure that it continued. Mrs. Woods was certainly one of those people. She made it very clear in her easement that it could be used in the existing, in its existing place, but if it needed to be moved, just an agreement between grantor and grantee. I've stayed out of it as much as I can because I don't want to be accused, like I have been in some of these emails, of doing bad things. But I have spent quite a lot of money personally checking out the easement and the conservation's ability to govern it the way they think they can. And all of these, if you look through it, I've got all the paperwork there, but when the town accepted it as a forest property or whatever it was. They accepted it with all the easements in place. They never go away. And they didn't write it correctly, and I have spent quite a lot of money to verify this. They didn't write it correctly so that, in all honesty, conservation doesn't have say on it. The Board of Selectmen still do. And they have that because when the article was written, it wasn't written in such a fashion that it was correct for conservation to have final say on it, or the governing body. I haven't passed that on to this club. I've really tried to stay out of it, but there's a lot of property in Weare that they're going to ask for in the future. That'll either be conservation or, you know, around development, so things will change. I joined this commission several years ago. I was very upset with restrictions on town-owned property and who owns all this property. It's the citizens of Weare. It isn't the selectmen, it isn't the conservation board, it isn't any one person, it is the citizens of Weare. And we're looking at nearly 10% of the citizens of Weare are asking to move this so that they can use it. And it's not an evil club. It is made up of some pretty decent people. And the purpose of a club, and especially this one has been in existence since 1970, is to make sure the sport survives, and it is to do it legal. And Mark's in here tonight. He's got that job where he has to go and meet with people, and he's probably met with a dozen or more landowners already this year. We probably have average of 100 or more. The town of Weare being one of the larger ones. The Society for Protection of New Hampshire Forests is one of the larger ones. That incidentally throughout the state of New Hampshire has a very good rapport between the Snowmobile Association and the Forest Society. Jeremy Turner, the Meadows End Timber, is one of our larger property owners. I felt very good about the last two conserved pieces that we were involved with here as a commission, where the words of motorized there was something added to it except snowmobiles.
Right.
And that was my goal in being on this commission. I don't think I've done any evil thing. I made it very clear when I came here that was my purpose. And Mrs. Wood made it very clear that that trail is to be used by others as well, meaning all the foot traffic and whatnot. And I thoroughly intend to educate the rest of the board. I have the utmost respect for Steve. When Steve says something, he's usually very right and he's done his research. And he has been very good with the snowmobile community and even ATVs, which surprised me. When he does say something, he's generally very accurate and he's done some homework, and I really do respect that. But I need to kind of nip in the bud the carrying on after something is mentioned, not by Steve. Like I said, I have a lot of respect. But I certainly hope that, I'm not sure what else you need here. I don't think, there's several things. One, wetlands, which was a concern. There is no concern with wetlands with snowmobiles because they don't go in water. It's frozen when they use it. So if it is water, it's ice. And as soon as it thaws,
You're
any
done anyway.
remnants, any tracks, anything go downstream. When they do go in and construct something, they have to use the procedures that they've been trained at, which every year they have to go to training with the Trails Bureau, and they call it best practices. We have been involved heavily with the Forest Society in building foot trails through wetlands on the snowmobile trails that did the snowmobiles zero good because they don't need it. It's frozen ground and it's frozen ice, but for people to use those trails and at pretty big expenses. We went in with bull pine chips and natural round stone and had a mixture and wheelbarrowed it down through the woods so that foot traffic could be used in some wet areas. But basically, what I'm really trying to say here is it isn't some evil group that's out terrorizing the town of Weare. It's a pretty respectable group. As you can see, it's mostly gray tops, or no tops. And they do it legal, they do it right, and they discourage the random use or the illegal use of property. This particular landowner got their very upset with neighborhood that have always just been there and never were allowed, but did it. And they don't bite on this. Fish and Game is working with the club very heavily on curing this. There's been a bunch of cameras installed, and the issue will go away. But the landowner, the Parkses, if you look, the trail was made in such a way that trail has moved probably a dozen times in my life down in that area. Wally Woods was probably the biggest contributor. He would bring a dozer home from Eldon Towns and put it where it needed to be, and it's gone on both sides of that brook. And it is when Fish and Game came in, the trail got moved down where it is now, the Fish and Game Club, so that we stayed out of their shooting range. We have a good rapport with them. He wanted it so that he could set up a food booth in his backyard. And that was kind of his lifelong goal, was to have the big trailer down there, which he did for several years, and sell hot dogs and hamburgers through the winter. And it's just plain too close to a house. We work very hard to make sure headlights don't aim into someone's home when they're near it and whatnot. You really, that's the purpose of a club, is to try and make things acceptable to that deal. There's a lot of purposes to a club, but in any event, I just hope you don't see evil when you see this organization. They're really trying to do it right, and so that you folks know, I've stepped down as a officer. I've been the president for too long, and I am a member because they don't throw me out. I don't pay membership anymore, but I can't seem to get away. But thank you.
Thank you, Bill. A couple things come to mind there. First off is the commission speaks at this table. We consider individuals share information away from this table. But the commission does not speak apart from this public face officially. All right? So if there is communications, emails or otherwise, conversations outside this meeting, wherever this meeting is held, whether it's here, upstairs, or a quorum of us is doing a site walk, or what have you, it's unofficial consideration. It's sharing of information. The second point is no individual speaks for the commission. This commission speaks through its motions, duly recorded and archived, and its decisions on those motions. And finally, as a commission, our authority comes through the enabling legislation. So the state sets up the law, the town decides to embrace the opportunity to set up a commission back in essentially the late 60s. And then there's a conservation commission with authority through state law to engage on certain issues. Stepping back from all that framework, we have an organization in good standing that we've, as a commission, had almost universal, and I can't think of the exception, but usually there's an exception to the rule, almost universal, good relationship with, a great conservation partner. Feelings go wherever they do, emotions go, and folks get riled by different things at different times. But as far as the commission goes, it's what we do here, what's recorded, and that's why it's important that we do take a look and make sure that we're in agreement that it's recorded appropriately. That's where the position comes from. That's where the way forward comes from. Unfortunately, I think this issue gets the request to move a trail gets rolled up in a sort of an unfortunate sort of turf battle. Well, we as this body have this authority, therefore we're the ones who say, no, we have it as this other bodies, therefore, fundamentally, if I were a member of a association, of a club, I would want to have, the managing entities, whether they're legally necessary or not, to be on board. So we want the Conservation Commission to say, yeah, we're okay with this location. It's a good idea, and we want to pass that recommendation on, not only to the Weare Winter Wanderers, but to the Board of Selectmen. And we want the Board of Selectmen to say, hey, we think this is a good idea. Just, get there to that conservation meeting. Maybe, maybe there's something we didn't think of, but we want you to get on. We want you to come before them and have them on board, because we expect that they are doing and bring to the table things that we might not think of. And that's whether it's legally required or not. I think as a townsperson, it's sensible that you don't want to go throwing something into a conservation property, regardless of who the previous owner was, without the folks who are tasked with, to some degree, managing that property be on board.
That's why we're here, Andy.
That's why you're here.
That's why we went to the selectmen as well. I want everybody on board.
I would never discourage anybody from going to the selectmen as our
Yeah.
as our elected town leaders. But I want the conversation of record, of import, to be held here. And I appreciate, Mark, that on behalf of the club, you're here. Let me ask you specifically what you need from us, so that your
To move
volunteer mission can be, or your volunteer purpose
need
can be
the-
fulfilled.
We just need the approval of the Conservation Commission that we're okay to move that trail to where we have it listed on this map.
And the four of us, however, we have a quorum here, we are a functioning body, we can entertain a motion, and we can second that motion if somebody feels like seconding it, and we can vote on that motion. I do want to be very clear, a couple things. One, it is our tradition, this is a long tradition, and sometimes traditions are valuable, with the Conservation Commission, that the chair does not make motions.
Okay.
That there's been an exception, I believe once in the over 10 years I've done this. And the reason is we don't want it to be even perceived that the chair speaks for the commission. The chair is almost a chairman or a chairwoman as a functionary, is make things go.
I understand.
You know, make sure you cover the right bases to do it legit.
I'm on the board of directors of the Snowmobile Club, so I fully understand. Andy, just to be that.
Let's be blunt, though.
Yeah.
You need our action now versus October.
We would like it now because we
Very
already
long, yeah.
have some work parties scheduled. Because on this existing trail, there's some bridges that we're rebuilding in the Melvin Valley area and actually on the mountain trail as well. So we're looking to be able to kind of grab those work parties
Yeah.
and start brushing this trail out at the same time. So in getting volunteer help currently is difficult. So when we can get it, we want to do it.
Yeah.
But it's just this, if you walk the area, you know, it's just, and I understand and I'm all for conservation and I'm all for, I hate when somebody destroys the work we do. We put a lot of hours, Bill, all the volunteers in the Snowmobile Club to try to do this right, and you always get the one or two that really can screw things up. This, in past years, we've had trouble with people on the ball fields and stuff that belong to the town. This now gives us, they can't get there. If they did, they worked really hard, and if they get caught, they're gonna be prosecuted. Before, you couldn't really prosecute because the trail went right there. And, you know, but now, we're shutting that trail off. It's gonna be gated. It keeps and I've gone up and guys, they've tried to take that gate down, that conservation gate on the road there. Because I've been up there and they had that gate bent in half.
Yeah, we appreciate the work that was done to try to get it back into working order.
It's workable.
Yeah.
But that in turn now, that gate's gonna stay closed. And we're gonna have the gate closed at the parks and we're gonna have the trail blocked off at the three corners. That keeps everybody on that side out. And if somebody is there, they're trespassing and will be dealt with accordingly. So and we're not disturbing, I mean, we have probably the length of this building that's not already cut. That has to be, cut. Everything else was cut from this summer's harvesting. We basically have to go in and move some slash and stuff and smooth the trail out a little bit where the skidder ruts are that deep. And it's pretty much a ready-made trail.
Yeah.
So I just think as for the conservation of that property and stuff, it just makes it a lot easier. There's no water on that area. There's one spot that is already stoned from years ago, but our intent would be to bridge it. There's no other water there at all.
Bridging done with materials brought in or with the materials?
We would put a bridge in
on-
because of the machine. It'd be easier just to put a bridge in. Like we have further down the trail, we have a bridge in there. We would put a bridge in. Best practices that we get when we go to the NHSA Trails meeting. They have a whole booklet on best practices to do that, and the society, because we deal directly with the Society of New Hampshire Forests, and they have a whole packet
Yep.
for us when we do any bridging in their property. So we would do the same thing, and it would be with natural materials. It would be set on logs, because it's not a big banking or anything, so it'd be set on logs, and we use rough cut 4x6s. And it doesn't really affect anything.
Yeah.
But that would just be, because the water right now is ½ inch deep. But you never know when springtime starts, if the water runs or get heavy rains, it'd be better, I think, if we just put the bridge on and be done with it. But it actually probably wouldn't happen this year, because we got a lot of work on other bridges. But we would probably, that's the only thing we would probably want to do, is bridge that one spot. And that is right by the road. I don't know if you're familiar with that, the road that goes up there where the green gate is.
Yeah.
Just to the right of that, where the green gate is, if you go down in the bottom of the valley, there's a little stream.
Out there, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're gonna stay on the skidder
Yes,
road right to the old existing road?
that's, the road is right there, it's part of
Yeah.
it. They didn't come up that way, but the previous cut, the road goes right down and crosses, we're crossing right where they crossed.
Well, I appreciate you coming in there, Mark, and I think this plan is very sensible. I have snowmobile trails right near my property. I walk them all the time. Very well maintained. You don't see, there's no issues that I see with the trails out there. I just had a couple questions and you've answered them
Yep.
pretty much. I was wondering if there are any trees of value out there, and you said the growth is 40 years. So are there any trees out
Well,
there?
we're going around them,
Okay.
but there's smaller, probably 3-inch, I think was probably the biggest tree I see we'd have to move. And that was in the Skidder area, the old Skidder Trail, where the big trees are still there. Because taking down a big tree is not our thing. We don't want to do it. If you see the walk path is not straight, it's because it's going around any big tree.
Mhm.
And most of it's sapling and brush. Like I said, I think there were probably 2-3-inch tree that needed to be moved out.
And just moving off from that, the brush disposal plan, is that just going off to the side of the trail?
We just push it off to the sides. Because that breaks down, I guess, and it's good habitat for animals and things like that. So we just need to clear out our 10-foot, 12-foot piece that we need. But they got some pretty good sized 3-4-inch trees they just laid down inside the big ruts. We're just going to push it off, kind of flatten it out so it's not so intrusive, but leave it there.
And then would there be any more material coming in? You said you'll probably be building a bridge there, any stone, anything of that nature coming in?
No, everything's right there. We wouldn't have to do anything. Just have to fix the getting on the road because they improved that road or they put a
You put
6-inch stone
fill
on
in,
that road.
Yeah.
We're just gonna have to fix getting up on that road. Probably have a mini excavator to smooth that transition.
Using existing material.
Everything that's there.
Yeah.
There's nothing that has to be brought in. Everything's right there.
That's what I got.
Also, the guy heading this up would be Ray LeMay, and he owns HS&G Erosion Control. So we have our own erosion expert for this. Make sure that this is done properly. He's the one that we walked it and picked the best pass and decided what we'd less disturb. And he's familiar with all plants and all that stuff and wetlands, and 'cause that's what he does.
All right, one additional thought. There are a lot of hypotheticals that people could think of. What if this, what if that, that are not necessarily germane to this proposal. And so I'd encourage the commission to speak to this proposal in any motion made and not try to go down the route of something bigger than what's right in front of us. We've got wider concerns, of course, as commissioners, as residents, as club members, as folks interested in different recreation. So unless it's germane, I would encourage that we put forward a motion that's limited in scope, that's as ours are generally, and steer clear of sort of the swirl that has muddied the waters a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And muddy waters generally settle down if you don't keep swirling them, and I would encourage all of us to let them settle. There are discussions that are bigger that can be had and probably should be had, but perhaps are not germane at this point. We have a function as a piece of the town, as a piece of town government, as a piece of something that has been enabled by the state as a commission. So, any other thoughts on the proposal? Anything need to be clarified? Anything, points of concern? I appreciate you, Michael, bringing those up. It's important that we have a chance to voice concerns and not have groups sort of guessing, too far what our concerns are, making assumptions about what our positions are.
I would rather not make the motion.
Understood.
I'll make
Understood.
the motion if you want me to.
I'm the vessel here, so, we need a motion, we need a second to properly engage us, and, we would encourage, any organization that's looking to, extend the way the public, can enjoy town properties and to improve it, to come and talk with us about it. And that's appropriate and that's good, and I'm glad it's happening. So Sherry, what's your motion?
I'd make a motion that the Weare Winter Wanderers Snowmobile Club be allowed to put a new trail in, and that which is noted as blue on the paperwork that we've received, and to discontinue the use of the yellow trail, which is also shown on this paperwork.
My only thing would be, it's not a new trail, it's a reroute. I don't know if it's an existing trail, it's just being rerouted. It's not a new trail per se.
So you've been using this trail?
No,
It's new construction,
new construction, okay.
All right,
so it's, what you said is adequate. Yeah.
okay.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion, to approve a new location for an existing trail as proposed and, in accordance with what is proposed.
I have one question,
And just hold on a second, Bill.
I'm sorry.
So we have a motion made, seconded. Clear to the recorder what the motion is?
I have, Mrs. Burdick moved for the Weare Winter Wanderers Club, Snowmobile Club, to be allowed to put a new trail in, rerouted, which is noted on blue on the paper, and discontinuing the use of the yellow trail as shown on the paperwork. Michael, seconded.
All right, we want it, along with the new trail location, say as shown in blue on,
I think I said that.
That's
Yeah.
what you said. Yeah.
you're right, I'm sorry, maybe I just
Oh,
didn't
I'm
hear.
very, I'm sorry, so.
I just wanted to have that color
Yeah.
blue
Yes.
Blue,
in what
yeah,
you've
yeah,
recorded,
said
so
that.
be clear on that.
There.
All right. Go ahead, Bill, as we're
One thing
in
that-
further consideration.
Yeah, just because of past involvement. Mark, you are probably going to want to have access past the existing, we'll call it green gate, the conservation gate, for maintenance.
Yes.
Because you won't be driving trucks if
On that
needed.
trail, correct.
And the trucks are pickup trucks in the next, usually you try and not do it during hunting season. But just after, they'll go out with crews and just trimming. And, I think you're gonna want to maintain that.
Yes, we would want to maintain access to the trail
Conservation to the
through the
green gate.
conservation gate.
So you want that added in, that they are allowed to use the conservation green gate for
Access.
access to maintain the trails. Just-
So continued usage to the green gate.
Yeah.
All right,
It would be continued usage, yeah.
Yeah. Usage of the conservation green gate.
by
The Weare Winter
Winter
Wanderers.
Wanderers
Snowmobile Club.
volunteers.
So,
Yep. All right, so we have an amendment, part of the motion and seconded proposal. Any other thoughts on this?
did we get a second on the amendment? The use of the gate?
Um,
I didn't hear any.
do we have a second on the
On the amendment added in?
motion as amended?
Yeah, I can second that.
Okay.
All right. So what's on the table would allow the snowmobile club to do some work consistent with what's been proposed here, and it maintains the vital link between long-standing trails in a more appropriate location, and I'd characterize it as beneficial rerouting to all. Before I bring it for a call, Mark, I want to request, and this isn't something that I feel needs to be part of the motion. It would be helpful if you could provide some updates as this work is actually unfolded.
Sure.
Timeline, as best you can, estimate. It's really for informational purposes, just so we have a sense of what's going and when. And that way, if we can eliminate surprises, or if you guys run into something out there that requires and would make great sense when it's unfolding, that something be changed,
Yep.
we want to talk about it.
Okay. When we have approval, we'll have another board meeting with the trail master, who's really in charge of the work of getting this done, and I'll post it through the email.
So, it's in, that'd be helpful. It's in your, in your hands
Yeah.
to decide, if something would sort of significantly change from what's depicted here. I think it would be in the club's interest that we'd get a
Be
heads
aware
up
of it.
about it and not find something, all right, we ended up doing something that made great sense, but we didn't tell you because we forgot to, It'd be much better to say, but, this is what we've encountered, and we'll
More than happy to do that, Andy. That's why we're here in the first place.
maintain
and
communications that should eliminate concerns and worries and keep us in a really good relationship, which I'm not shy to characterize our relationship with the Snowmobile Club as a good relationship. I think it's mutually beneficial all around. Anything else, as I've postponed a little bit to let folks percolate? Let's have a good, all right. There being no more comments, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And I will confirm that is a unanimous aye by 4, correct?
Correct.
And the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. We'll be back as we do have some other roads on town property coming up. When we get more information and better, we'll definitely pass that information on to the board. Just for it's the land on the other side of 114 by the Tebow property.
Tiny little minor thing. We really like being called the commission.
Oh, commission.
Just, I know they're often used interchangeably, but there is a difference on how a commission comes to be versus how a
Okay.
board.
I
And a
apologize.
commission can create a board, but a commission
The board
can't
can create a
necessarily
commission.
create a commission.
Commission.
Yeah.
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 So I think it's a good reminder of what this group is charged with, and we all need to remember what we're charged with, and sometimes pull back a little bit and have a bit of a refocusing. So
I thank you all for your time.
appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Happy riding.
Gotta work first.
Yes, absolutely. Those are a couple significant items for us to consider, and we'll try to reserve comments of significance until Courtney returns.
Jerry, I saw something very unique.
What's that?
Snowshoes for a workhorse. Have you ever seen such a thing? I'm gonna try and get them.
Really?
Just bought some property over in Peterborough. Neat old man.
Wow.
And his oldest daughter was managing the estate. And I was looking at these things hanging on the wall. Said, you know what they are? And I said,
They gotta be really big.
nope. They're meant for swamps and snow. If I can
That's
get
a
them,
very odd,
they'd be neat though.
very odd address for that.
I've never heard of it. Never.
Oh, you need a clubhouse or something?
Not wide.
Maybe,
They can't be too wide because the horse would be walking on it.
yeah. And
And they could be longer probably.
no, they weren't. They were almost square,
Yeah.
as I recall.
Yeah.
If
Weird.
they're still there, I can get my hands on
All right, you can
Yeah, that'd
circle
be
the
neat.
file those if you don't mind.
them. Who is that?
Yeah, I never saw them.
All right, folks, any other business for tonight? Like I said, I did not comb through our records to dredge up everything that's been discussed over the last month or,
No, I haven't.
and, yeah, I'm well ready to have this be a short and focused meeting. I took a look at the mail, had a couple items of non-significance.
Okay, fine with me.
Can I have that final motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We adjourn at 8:35.